John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. We've had a huge week for the secondary market that has just happened, mostly due to the fact that the Commander 2017 deck lists have been revealed, and maybe more importantly, the cards that are not in there have been revealed, and there is a strong impact right now in the singles market based off what's going on in the world of Commander. Not just the tribal deck enhancements that people are already thinking about, but also some of the competitive Commander 1v1 decks, which have garnered a lot of attention due to Magic the Gathering Online making them a new focus and priority. And now that's starting to cross over a little bit into paper too. You twist in the fact that some people are trying to take advantage of the increased attention on some of these cards by making some maybe small buyouts, and you have yourself a pretty volatile situation on your hands. And we're going to look at all of it today. In this video, we're going to look at Standard, Modern, Legacy like we always do, but at the end, I'm also going to do a top 10 Commander cards for the top 10 hot Commander cards right now, because there's that much going on in the market. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, find a couple ways to support us. You'll find some links for some Amazon products. If you make any purchases via those links, a small percentage will come back to help us out. You'll also find our Patreon page linked below as well. With that being said, let's get into the cards. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to start off, as we always do, with Standard and the cards that lost value this week. Not a lot of surprises here. You're going to see some cards that are getting close to rotation and some cards that aren't seeing as much play as they were seeing prior to this meta. Coming in number 5, Heart of Kirin, down 64 cents to $9.99. Probably no real big surprise here. Heart of Kirin was the darling of maybe the last meta, but Mardu vehicle decks, they won't completely go away, but they're just not as important to this meta as they were to the previous one. Number 4, Champion of Wits, down 68 cents to $5.01. There's a lot of raw power behind this card. This card had a great showing early on in Emerged decks, as well as the God Pharaoh's Gift deck. But it turns out that the meta has shifted into a whole other direction, with the Ramanap Red and the Mono Black Zombies being the most popular decks right now. So Champion of Wits, even though it has a small role out there, isn't getting the foothold that some of the other cards are right now. But keep an eye on this one post-rotation. Coming in number 3, Liliana, The Last Hope, down 71 cents to $30. Lily's a good card. She's going to see Standard play before she rotates out, which is really a few weeks down the road now. And she'll see play after that, in Modern even. But at $30, it's a high price point for a Standard card that is on the way out. So you're going to find a lot of Standard players that will sell this card off to build new decks for the next meta going forward. And because of that, she will continue to slide. Even if it's gradual at this point, she's going to keep going down for a while. Coming in number 2, Hour of Devastation, down 73 cents to $6.67. Another card that had a good showing early on, but right now the red decks are small red decks. They're aggro decks that don't necessarily want something like this in them. This would be a good foil to some of the popular decks, and maybe we'll see that emerge at some point, but again, you do have to adjust your expectations on this card. It is a rare, not a mythic, and at least at this point hasn't had a real strong foothold in the meta. Coming in number 1, Gideon Allied, Zendikar, down 96 cents to $11.55. So no surprise here. Gideon getting close to rotation, and again with decks like Mardu Vehicles kind of out of favor right now, he's going to decline. And once you can get this card for under $10, I'd say pick up a play set, even if you can find them eventually down the road, maybe $6, $7, $8. Gideon sees play in Legacy and Modern, and even though there were a ton of copies printed, it's going to take a long time for the market to digest those copies. I think it's good to have some on hand, as long as you don't overpay for them. All right, let's move on to the top 5 Standard cards that have gained value this week. Now, Ramanap Red, you're going to notice, is the majority of the list here. 4 out of the 5 cards. Looked really good again last weekend as a Star City Games Classic in Syracuse, though. Keep in mind this is a smaller tournament, much smaller than an Open, but still, that particular deck won the tournament and looked just good generally. Also, the Mono Black Zombie deck looked good last week, too. So let's see what we have here. Coming at number 5, Chandra Torture Defiance, up 25 cents to $33.74. Not a huge increase for her, and I expect her to start sliding down probably next week at this point. The players that are trying to pick up the copies of this card are picking them up, and this is pretty expensive for a Standard card. Even though it does see some Modern play, you want to keep that in mind too. But for the amount of play it is getting, and the fact that a lot of these packs of Kaladesh have been opened, and there's a lot of her in circulation, I expect her to start sliding down. I feel like $25 is probably more of a fair price point for this card going forward. Number 4, Cataclysmic Gearhulk, up 27 cents to $2.73. Here's the lone card that is not from the Ramanap Red deck. This is in the Godpharaoh's Gift deck, which didn't really do so well last couple weeks. It was very hyped going into the Pro Tour, didn't really put up the results, unfortunately. However, this card, like all the others, started to dip, but I think at the price point that it got down to around $2.50, a lot of players thought it might be a good time to pick it up, and it started to rebound a little bit. Also, too, Saffron Olive did stream this deck last week, which probably brought a little more attention to it, too. Number 3 is Soul Scar Mage, up 28 cents this week to $2.88. Another Ramanap red card. This is one that actually hasn't hit our top 5 yet, so it's getting its chance to get in the spotlight. Number 2, Bomat Courier, of course, huge piece to Ramanap red, up 29 cents to $2.50. And number 1, you guessed it, Hazaret the Fervent, up 42 cents to $17. Again, I do think this card is stabilizing around the $17, $18 price point at this time, and I do think we'll start to slide down now slowly. All right, let's move on to Modern. So what's been happening with the Modern cards that are losing value? Not too much. These are some of the cards that have recently seen spikes, and as you can imagine, there's a little bit of softness in the market for some of the expensive cards due to the fact that we have Iconic Masters and Masters 25 on the horizon. Number 5, Goryo's Vengeance, down $1.34 to $45.98. This card spiked pretty hard recently due to the dubious challenge deck, which was popular in June, but that deck didn't really pan out. So this card is sliding down a little bit. However, it was severely undervalued at the time. I don't think it's going to slide down too much, but I do think this card probably will settle in the low 40s. Number 4, Fulminate Armes, down $1.49 to $36.35. This is the Shadowmoor version, and you usually don't see Shadowmoor cards going down in value, but this one did spike pretty strongly over the last couple months. It's just stabilizing a little bit now. Number 3, Noble Hierarch from Conflux, down $1.51 to $62.80. Now, Hierarch is a card that I would almost bet will be reprinted, if not Iconic Masters and Masters 25. This has not seen a reprint since Modern Masters 2015. It's definitely overdue. It sees so much play in so many formats that I think a lot of players are skeptical about picking this up right now for the $60, $65 price point. Number 2, Pact of Negation from Modern Masters, down $1.96 to $33.01. This has been going up recently too, thanks to the success this card has had in the Gift Storm decks in Modern, but it's snapping back a little bit now. And coming in at number 1, Fidel Kanuri, down $2.09 to $11.25. This is the 5th Dawn version. Another card that has gone up in value recently, just snapping back a little bit now. All right, let's move on to the cards that have gained value, and you're going to find an eclectic bunch of cards here, quite honestly. Coming in at number 5, Cavern of Souls from Modern Masters 2017, up $2.16 to $49.99. This is interesting here. Now, of course, we know why this is going up. Tribal Commander decks are about to hit the market in about 2 weeks, right? And this card is perfect for tribal decks. It's a competitive tribal card, but it's also a Commander tribal card as well. And here's the issue now. This card just got reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. It got reprinted, though, as a Mythic in a limited set. This was Wizards' chance to maybe get the value of this card under control before the price spikes from the upcoming Tribal Commander decks really hit. Unfortunately, due to the limited quality of this card, it's going to be back up to where it was before you know it. I think really at a blink of an eye, both this version and the original version. So this card is going to continue to be hot, continue to increase, and really we just don't know when we're going to see another reprint at this time. Shared Animosity, up $3.06 to $19.82. You guessed it, another card that works really well with Tribal, and it's a Morningtide card. That's not going to hurt either. Number 3, Liliana of the Veil, up $3.09 to $86.33. She's starting to climb up slowly now that she's stabilizing off the reprint from Modern Masters 2017. Of course, this is the Innistrad version we're looking at here. But also, too, she is seeing a little bit of increased play in Legacy recently in those 4-color Leovold decks. Number 2, Mirror Gallery, up $3.82 to $13.75. This one was down a little bit last week, starting to rebound again this week now. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this card. I'm going to mention some Ixalan leaks. So if you're avoiding those leaks, I'll give you a chance to forward to the next card. All right, I think that's enough time. So long story short, when we saw those leaks, it looks like the Planeswalkers are going to be referred to as legendary Planeswalkers in the future. So a lot of people, of course, speculating that cards like this one that apply to the Legend rule could definitely have a bigger role in the future, even if it's just Commander. So because of that, this card's been pretty hot. Coming in at number 1, here's an interesting one. Vengevine, up 557 to 1945. Now, last weekend at the Star City Games Open in Syracuse, it was a modern open, and Julian Grace Martin had a deck with Vengevine, featuring Vengevine, that looked really cool on day 1. Now, unfortunately, on day 2, the deck didn't do really well. It came in 35th place at the end, but it did capture a lot of attention just based off its performance on day 1. Now, one of two things can happen. If somebody solves this deck, maybe tweaks it a little, and it gets a good finish soon, deck could become very popular. Vengevine will continue to go up. It is a good card. But if this was sort of a flash in the pan, which it might have been, then this might just be the hot deck of August, and we're going to just move on to something else in September. That just seems to be what happens in Modern. We always get this kind of super hyped deck for a month, and then it goes away. So that might be what's happening here, but Vengevine will be a card to watch. All right, let's move on to the legacy cards that have lost value this week. Most of your usual suspects here on the list. Number 5, Singing Tree, down 1072 to 39.27. If you can find this for under $40, though, I think it's a good pickup, actually. Number 4, Savannah, down 1164 to 158.32. This is the unlimited version. Number 3, The Abyss, down 1634 to 246.80. Number 2, Jazam Jin, down 56.59 to 594.96. So even though this is coming down a little bit this week, still hanging out around that $600 price point, which is pretty high for this card typically. And number 1, Drop of Honey, down 143.28 this week to 545. But I do want to point out, this card was actually around $1,000 around Monday or Tuesday. So even though week to week this is down 143.28, from the early portion of the week, it's actually down $555. So that's pretty insane. This is definitely the result of market manipulation. There's no doubt about it. I think what happened with this card was it was an undervalued Arabian Nights card. It got a little bit of extra attention a few weeks back due to the fact that 2 of these are in the sideboard of the Legacy Lands deck. And I think at that point, people started to take advantage of the limited market availability. They started picking up copies, and it really hit ahead earlier in this week when they hit around $1,000. Completely manipulated bubble, insane, and now the bubble's busting on this one. So it's on its way down. It's going to keep going down. Be cautious of this one. All right, let's move into the cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5, Guardian Beast, up 23.96 to 185.95. Actually a decent card for Commander in its own right, but really the reason this is going up this week, I think, is buyouts. I think there's players just trying to pick up what they can find of these Arabian Nights cards. It might not be a single orchestrated buyout, but just simply a lot of collectors, I think, are grabbing onto these Arabian Nights cards when they can find them because they're just super hot right now in the market. Number 4, Moat, up 24.44 to 580.25. Number 3, Tundra from Unlimited, up 30.80 to 348.30. Number 2, Planar Gate, up 31.48 to $82. Great reserve list card that works super well with creature decks like, tribal commander decks. This card's been real hot last few weeks. Coming in number 1, Ali from Cairo, up 57.01 to 149.99. I'm expecting some snapback for this card. It's been really hot the last few weeks. And a couple months ago, I was preaching buy, because this was like a $50 card. And it's increased quite a bit recently. I do expect it to slow down now at this point, but I don't see it ever going back to $50. This card is just too sought after from collectors right now. All right, so let's talk about Commander, because that's where the real story is this week. We've already seen some notable Commander cards in our other lists, but now we're going to look at top 10, even more cards that you might want to think about if you're a Commander player, if you can find these still for a good price. And there's a lot going on here. Some of these cards are being manipulated by some market manipulation, and I'll call that out when I see it. Some are just hot because of 1v1 Commander that has had an increased spotlight recently on Magic Online that is crossing over more into paper Magic. And also, of course, as you guessed it, tribal decks from Commander 2017 having a big influence on the market. So let's look at number 10. Stone Calendar, up $1.95 to $24.99 from the dark this week. I do have to warn you on this one, though. There is some market manipulation here. The card was up to around $40 earlier in the week. It's already been crashing pretty hard over the last few days. It will continue to go down. Don't overpay for this. I think what happened here, though, is this card got the attention of maybe some speculators due to the fact that it could be a good include in some of those competitive Commander decks, those Grand Arbiter Barolo decks. And because of that, I think someone started to buy these out and they dried up on the marketplace, and you did see a pretty big bubble for this card. Number 9, Jalem Tome, up 363 this week to 625. This is an Antiquities card, and it actually has been reprinted. You can find cheaper versions of it, but there's definitely some interest right now in the original version. This is a fine Commander card, but again, I don't really think Commander's driving the price. I think it's just simply people trying to pick up some of the old cards like Antiquities cards. Aura Shards, up 659 to 1820. This is the original Commander 2011 version of the card, and it had a nice spike this week. As you can imagine, it works well with creature-heavy decks like tribal decks, but you can actually get the original version of the card at about half the price, so I would recommend that if you're just looking for a copy. Coming in at number 7 in the Eye of Chaos, up 939 this week to 7922. Reserve list card from Legends that again looks good in some of these competitive Commander decks, and this card's been hot for a few weeks now. Number 6, Patriarch's Bidding from Onslaught, up 955 to 2470. I probably don't have to tell you why. This card works amazingly well with tribal Commander decks. Number 5, Patron Wizard, up 1610 to 2299. Well, if you want to upgrade that Wizard deck, here's a good way to make it super annoying and more spiky. And a lot of players are buying into that. It's definitely gone up a lot this week. Number 4 is Riptide Laboratory, up 1466 to $20.80. Another card from Onslaught, really hot right now, and again, plays well with Wizards for that Wizard Tribal deck. Number 3, Mana Matrix, up $21.19 to $45. Here's another card that fits more into the competitive mold, but again, I do wonder how much of these are actually being picked up by players trying to build those decks, or if these are being picked up by speculators more so. Number 2, Concordant Crossroads from Legends, up $21.62 to $69. Now, you can find a cheaper version if you want the Chronicles version, so keep that in mind. But this original version works really well, again, with creature-heavy decks like tribal decks, but this card has seen success in Legacy, too. Coming in number 1, Pyramids, up $22.29 to $29.99. Now, this card was one of my picks of the month in July, so I hope you watched that video and listened and got a copy then, because they were just a few dollars. This is a pretty nice spike. I don't think there's any particular Commander deck pushing this or anything. I mean, it's a fine Commander card, but again, this just feels like a buyout due to the fact that a lot of people are trying to identify these Arabian Nights cards that are undervalued, and this was a clear option. Alright, having said that, those are the cards for this week. It's been crazy, and it's still 2 weeks before the decks actually come out. This is going to be a huge summer and fall for Commander, and we will definitely be here every week to update you. I think it's going to get even crazier as the weeks go on. So, until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.